right, here's an interesting one. In the same vein, because I keep getting all these reports about voter fraud in different states that are unverified, and I always ask, well, did the people with the proof actually take this to court? Is there a listing or article or even a something that can be verified where these particular voter fraud or voter fraud items have been taken to court so we can have proof? And normally it comes back, no. They always send me to a YouTube video, So I'm going to start giving out YouTube Scholar certificates, man, for people like that, because they don't even bother to shepherd their information or basically verify their information and like cross-check the information that they hear. I think this was a Twitter post, and then somebody repeats it on YouTube about a Twitter post, when nobody actually comes back and actually verifies or cross-checks their information. But in the spirit of this, I keep getting people asking me about the 10,000 voters in Michigan that are dead. So BBC News yesterday thought this was actually a very interesting occurrence, very interesting story. So they tracked it down. So I'm going to read this article from BBC, all right? U.S. election 2020, the dead voters in Michigan who are still alive. Donald Trump supporters have claimed that thousands of votes were cast in the U.S. election using the names of people who had died. I may be 72. Maria Ariando from Michigan told us when we called her, but I'm still alive and breathing. Mine is working fine and I'm healthy. Maria said she voted for Joe Biden, and she was surprised to hear that her name had appeared on a list of supposedly dead voters in the state. We spoke to other people in similar situations to that of Maria in Michigan. Well, that sounds like a nice little ring to it, Maria in Michigan, and found similar stories. There have been occasions in previous U.S. elections of dead people having apparently voted. This could happen through clerical errors or perhaps other family members with similar names voting with their ballots. But Trump supporters have alleged that this has happened on a massive scale at this election. We set out to find whether there is evidence for this claim. 10,000 dead absentee voters in Michigan. The story starts with a list of around 10,000 names posted on a Twitter by Trump supporting activists. It purports to be of people who have died who have also voted in the presidential election in Michigan. Claims such as this have been repeated many times on different social media platforms, including by Republican legislators. The list of 10,000 contains the name, zip, and the state a ballot was received. It then lists a full date of birth and a full date of death. Some of the people supposedly died more than 50 years ago. Michigan has a database that lets you enter someone's name, zip code, month of birth, and year of birth, and allows you to see if they voted by absentee ballot this year. So you can easily check whether people on the list voted. There are also several U.S. websites that include databases of death records. But here's a fundamental problem with this list of 10,000. With an exercise like this, you're going to find false matches. Somebody born in January 1940 voted in Michigan in the election, and then somebody born somewhere else in the U.S. in January 1940 who has the same name and is now dead. This will happen a lot in a country as big as the U.S., 328 million people, and particularly with common names. To test the list, we picked 30 names at random. To this, we added the oldest person on the list. Of this list of 31 names, we managed to speak directly to 11 people, or to a family member, neighbor, or care home worker, to confirm they were still alive. For 17 others, there was no public record of their death, and we found clear evidence that they were alive after the alleged date of death on the list of 10,000. A clear pattern emerged. The wrong records had been joined together to create a false match. Finally, we found that 3 people on the list were indeed dead. We examined these cases later. What we discovered: the first thing that we did was to check the official Michigan electoral database to see whether our 31 individuals had sent in ballots they all had. We then looked at the death records and quickly became suspicious on seeing that the vast majority did not die in Michigan, but elsewhere in the U.S. We wondered whether we could find people of the same name currently living in Michigan. Checking Michigan State public records, cross-referencing voter postal codes, we were able to find precise dates of birth for those who had voted. And as we had anticipated, they failed to match the dates of birth on the death records. So we could be confident that we were dealing with two sets of people, those who had voted and those with the same name and age who had died elsewhere. But what we really wanted to do was speak to the voters ourselves. I'm alive, we called Roberto Garcia, a retired teacher in Michigan. He told us, I'm definitely alive, and I definitely voted for Biden. I would have to be dead to vote for Trump. We also found a 100-year-old woman who, according to the dead voter list, had died in 1982. She was alive and is currently living in a nursing home in Michigan. But the results of our search weren't always straightforward. When we looked for another centenarian who, according to the list, had died in 1977, we found that she had still been alive when her postal ballot was returned in September. However, a neighbor told us the woman had died just a few weeks ago. We also found a matching obituary from October to confirm this. If a voter dies before Election Day after submitting their ballot, the Michigan authorities say the ballot will be rejected. We have not been able to establish whether her ballot was counted. For those we couldn't reach by phone, we wanted to use other means to confirm they were alive. These included public records of, for example, business activities from state and local authorities. For one woman who's supposed to have died in 2006, we found an annual company statement signed under her name from January 2020. Two other men on our list of 31 died some time ago, yet votes had been cast in their names with the correct postcodes and years of birth according to the voting database. We found that for both men, they were sons with the same name, currently registered at the same address as their deceased father. In both cases, a ballot was sent in for the dead fathers. Local election officials told us that one of the votes had been counted, but there was no record of the son having voted. In the other, it was the son who actually voted, but had been recorded as fathers due to a clerical error. It's simply a matter of statistics. Our selection of 31 cases is only a small sample of the 10,000 names on the list, but it has clearly revealed the flaws in the database shared by Trump supporters. From our investigation, it's clear that in almost all of the 31 test cases, the data for genuine voters in Michigan has been combined with the records of dead people with the same name and birth month and year from across the United States to yield false matches. If the lists are linked based on name and birth date alone, in a state the size of Michigan, you're guaranteed to get false positives, says Professor Justin Levitt, an expert on the law of democracy. It's known as the birthday problem, the high probability that two students in the same class share the same birthday. So if you compare millions of voters in Michigan with a database of deaths across the United States, you're bound to find crossover, particularly if the voter database doesn't include the day of the month on which the person is born. It's simply a matter of statistics that if you cross-reference millions of records with millions of other records, you'll get a sizable amount of false positive matches. That's true. We've seen this before, says Professor Justin Levitt. With her vote safely cast and counted, Maria Arredondo tells us she's looking forward to a new administration. He was the great vice president under Obama, so I'm pleased. A weight has lifted off my shoulders. And that is the end of the article from the BBC. And while this is not 100% correct, or as they say, exhaustive, they just took a random sample. And like they said, there will be a percentage of people of clerical errors where there's mismatching. And there might have been people that actually casted their ballots for dead people. It's possible. But their little experiment, their random sample, which is something that if you certify a machine or you certify a process, you're not going to call or talk to 10,000 people. What you're going to do is you're going to take a random sample just like they did, and audit its accuracy. And I think out of what, the 31 they did or the 40 that they did, 2 came back. If that's the case, then you might have a case that some people might have voted that have died, or somebody might have voted for them. But guess what? It's such a small sample, and if all 10,000 were false, that were all dead, which they're not, obviously. You're talking about maybe 1%, maybe. Even in this sample, what is it? About 1%, 1 or 2%. And if that's the case, it really doesn't matter. It's not going to overturn a whole election. And this could happen in any election. It's not widespread voter fraud. But only newspapers can actually get some of the stuff out of people. If you call and say you're part of the BBC, they'll answer your questions. But they call a bunch of people that were presumed dead, found out they're all alive, except for 2, where the father had deceased, and one was a clerical error, and one guy mailed in his father's ballot because he thought it was his, evidently. So, like I've said, I don't particularly like Biden, and I've never particularly liked Biden because I never liked that shark smile that he's always had. So, but I don't really particularly care one way or the other. I didn't like Trump either. So there's that. But I keep hearing this case. Trump has a case of massive voter fraud. If it's massive, then it should be obvious. There's a big difference between a small 3-foot wave and a tidal wave. Okay. Fucking tidal wave you can see for damn near 50 miles. Okay, you see it coming. It looks like the whole ocean is going to swallow you up. And you can actually, it's obvious, you can see it. You don't have to go all the way down to the shore to see a fucking tidal wave. It is what it is. If it was massive voter fraud, he wouldn't be losing court cases left and right. Everybody says, oh, well, the system is fixed, blah, blah, blah. Most of those judges are Republicans. If you have it, you have it. But no judge is going to put his name on it, and that stuff flies back in his face. You're going to have a really good case, especially for something this big. And they don't. And every time they come up with an excuse why Trump has the case, next couple of days it comes back that he doesn't, because people actually start looking at it. And when they look at it, then they scrutinize it. When they scrutinize it, then they find out that the 99% of that stuff didn't have any merit. And trust me, believe, I am no fan of Kamala Harris nor Joe Biden. But if we're going to do this right, if we're going to be thinking black men, we can't think with our emotions. Can't think with hope. The odds are, and I say the odds are very good that Joe Biden will become president. I say Trump has like a 1 in 99 shot, 1 in 100 shot of getting this done. It might be 1 in 1,000. It's more like 1 in 1,000 shot of him actually overturning this election and winning it. But by the same token, there's one good thing. There's a brighter side. He owns a whole bunch of golf courses and he can play for free. And his friends can play for free. And you could get around the golf. And you can get around the golf. And you can get around the golf. All I'm saying is, y'all, stop hitting me up with this false shit, man. If you cross-reference your stuff and cross-check your stuff, stop trying to put it against me so that I can cross-check it. And then get butthurt when I prove it, or when I actually prove it wrong or disprove it. Do your due diligence. Basically, somebody sent me this article. But I could actually have gone out and found it. I actually found it way before this. This is the most scrutinized election probably in United States history. Probably United States history, because of the technology that's involved and all the paper ballots that are involved. You got damn near 100 million, paper ballots. If you had basically they said that you had 140, 150 million people vote in this election. And that's a rough estimate. And you had 100 million mail-in ballots. You're talking about, if that's even close to being true, you're talking about, what is it, 60%? 60% of your voting came from mail-in ballots, or actually paper ballots, which is probably why it's taking so long to actually count that shit, which is probably hasn't happened since the modern era, since probably the 60s, because everything else has been electronic, has been computer voting, since the IBM punch card was actually invented. And most countries said it's insane to do it by machine. You have to do it by hand because it makes it harder to cheat. Now you have 100 million votes, almost 100 million votes were actually tallied and collected. And now it's being counted by hand. It's actually being sorted and counted mostly by hand. And you guys keep screaming about unfairness and cheating and stuff like that. Said, you guys have no clue because you guys weren't in on other elections. I mean, there's so much evidence coming in to the contrary, but you guys won't give up because you guys are mostly wedded to this president called Donald Trump, and I am not. Instead of is what it is, and basically at the end of the day, it doesn't make any difference who you get, the fox or the wolf. Now, the wolf is cleverer, but the fox will devour you and give you no mercy. The fox might walk off and come at you another time, but the wolf won't. So I don't know why people are getting all upset. Like, you go back to the crime bill. That was bipartisan, and the Democrats pushed it harder than the Republicans. So at the end of the day, guess what? It doesn't make a difference. At the end of the day, it doesn't make a difference. Be secure in who you are. You have to endure your president, whoever he is, and you hope that he's going to do a good job. He hopes that he solves the problems of the environment that you live in. If he does, he'll be a good president. If he does it exceptionally, he'll be a great president. Donald Trump had the opportunity to become a great president, but he's going to get booted out of office being a mediocre president, which he was. He wasn't as horrible as I thought he would be because he did learn, which I will give him credit for. There's lots of things I give Donald Trump credit for. When he does something right, I give him credit. Same thing with Biden. As much as I don't trust him, as much as I don't like Biden, I probably like Biden less than Donald Trump, if that's possible. But if he's our president, and he's going to be our president, and he's got to solve all these outlying problems, then you know what? I hope that he will be a good president. He certainly has been close enough to it for many, many years, so he should know how. There probably won't be as big a learning curve as there was with Donald Trump. So we shall see. But I just want to drop this on these conservatives' heads, man. It's like, yo, you guys, I don't know where you guys get your stuff from, man. Y'all believe anything. Y'all will believe anything. You have the internet to check this stuff too? Well, I will believe this dude that you never heard of, that you never seen, never talked to over the press because you don't like them. Your fake news is better than anybody else's fake news instead of just getting rid of the fake news. Anyway, let me get off here before I start rambling. I got another ramble that I really want to do that's really on my heart. And I was in the mood to record it, but I got interrupted by my grandson. And so the passion kind of left. It has something to do with me watching Joe Biden and the original crime bill and what that did to the Black community and why I don't think the Black community will ever recover. I think it's pretty much done. And I think those series of actions actually killed what we think of as a Black community. But I'll get into that later. But anyway, I'm going to drop this one and, hopefully I can find the energy to actually do the other one, which I think is probably to me more personal and more important later. So look forward to that. And then I'm gonna have to start doing some stuff for my Patreon. I've been kind of putting my patrons on the back burners, and I think that's not fair. So patrons, look for some good stuff coming up probably the second half of this month and on into Christmas and beyond. Got so much stuff, man. I should be continuing the writing on this book, which has stalled, but I am going to redouble my efforts, and I promise people that the basic draft of the book will be done by January 1st. I'm going to hit those markers, and then sometime next year, if I can find good editors, the book should be ready to be published, like hopefully by, I say, March of next year. I'm going to get that done and get that out of the way. So people have been looking for it. Hey, Octanes is coming. I'm working on it. Probably not as diligently as I should because, I think putting down the basic batter, but baking this cake and editing this shit is going to be a bear. I am not looking forward to it because it's looking like I had planned for a 200-page book, and this bad boy might be a 400-page book, and I am not looking forward to that. Anyway, I'm going to jump off here. This is BGS out.